sharing their experience from tech leaders to tech leaders. This is CTO Talks.
Hello and welcome. This is Marcin Jabłonowski speaking, and on today's episode of CTO Talks, I'm hosting Loïc Houssier, the SVP of Engineering at Productboard. Hi, Loïc.
Hi, Marcin. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate that.
Thanks for accepting the invitations, and we're going to have a very interesting conversation today, including a topic that's very close to my heart, which is like cultural differences and managing them in the teams. But before we begin, Loïc, could you give us a bit of background about yourself? Yeah, where are you coming from? What's your role, and something about your history?
Yeah, of course. So I probably like the audience will hear my accent. Definitely not native fluent. I was an English speaker. I'm French, and started my career basically in Paris. My background early on was computer science. I would say pretty classic. Worked in mostly as a backend person, like more interested in the backend system security. Working for defense industry, banking industries. To start with in big corporation. Big international companies, then moving to smaller companies, trying to see what a startup is. And in 2015, I've been acquired. So I was the CTO of a small company in Paris. I've been acquired by an American company, and that was kind of like the real beginning of my understanding of like cultural differences and how that can influence like a dynamic of a team. I moved to San Francisco following that acquisition. By DocuSign in 2017. So I live in San Francisco since then. So like starting my 7 years, seventh years there. DocuSign was a nice ride, scale up, IPO, and then like a will to come back to like smaller company, bigger impact, and so joined like a Series B company called First Base, fully remote and distributed, which means that I was like with teams a bit from all over the world, and you have to try to bring that together to get the best. And eventually last year, I joined Productboard with in Central Europe, initially coming from Czech Republic. The founder and co-founder were both Czech. And with the growth and the success, the company started to have the headquarters in San Francisco to be closer to the rest of the tech industry, closer to the customers. And they wanted to have a leader that has these both like, I would say, European culture knowledge and I would say the Silicon Valley experience as well. And I was a good fit for what they were looking at the time. The company was a good fit for me for what I was looking for. And so far so good. Enjoying my time. It's pretty cool actually. And yeah, another opportunity for me to manage those cultural differences because now we have a team in SF, we have a team in Prague, but we have also people in UK. Like, how do you make this like work and all of that? Like, all the dynamics. It's something that is, very interesting for me.
Okay, awesome. So you weren't like a random choice, and so from what I'm hearing is that like you getting the role you have now, one of the reasons was because your knowledge of the culture, but different cultures, yes. But why does it even matter? Yeah, so because it's like not every company puts attention to cultural differences.
Not all companies, I would say, understand that. Most companies start to understand that when they grow. Like when you're like an American company, you start to grow, you start to build an office somewhere else, and then you start to see like some communication discrepancies, some, I would say, different behavior. I mean, if I do a caricature, in Europe, we are a bit more like on the pessimistic side of the I would say the scale, while Americans, and again, Americans is a big word because there's definitely differences between people in the Bay, people in Seattle, people in like the East Coast, but generally, Americans are seen as much more optimistic. When they deliver bad news, they do it in a way that is pretty well-rounded and taking care of like how the message will be perceived by the other person. While, for example, in Europe, we're more direct. And just that, for example, can create like a weird dynamic between teams and like a lack of trust between those teams. So, and again, I'm making like a big, I would say, block of people, like the Europeans are different between themselves. Americans are also different. And even in the US, like in the Bay Area, I would say it's not only Americans. We have people from India, from China, from, I would say, South America, like from everywhere, basically, and European as well. So like trying to understand that not everyone is equal and not everyone reacts, I would say, to the same communication is key for the success. And I think like coming back to this role, why is it even more important? I think the CEO, Hubert, who is Czech and has been living in the Bay Area for like so many time, definitely understand that plays like a significant role for the cohesion of a group, to make sure that there's someone that understands both sides or like all sides, so that you can take a step back, make sure that people understand each other, try to bridge those gaps, because even if we are all humans, we are all different. And for the success of an organization, I think it's important that at the leadership level, there's a solid understanding of those subtle differences, but the success of a team is usually associated with like the environment and how people are cohesive. And if you don't understand that people can be different, but still contributing, I would say, the same way to the company, I mean, that's probably one of the key for like a success for a company.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that on the one hand, there are some challenges that you should be aware of. Yeah. So, what are the biggest challenges you faced in your career, or you consider like the most major ones? You briefly mentioned communications, yeah, but what else?
Another one that was really interesting that I experienced firsthand. So when I was acquired by DocuSign back in 2015, we had a pretty solid team in Paris, but with the French way of doing things, where we have like a strong separation between work and life. And you don't expect your people when it's like 6 p.m. past 6 p.m., you don't expect them to be on Slack, to like answer messages and all of that. But you expect them to work like pretty intensively during the day. And after the acquisition and all of that, the perception of people were weird, because on the American side, they were like, hey, you guys, they don't have a sense of urgency. Like after 6 p.m., no one is really answering like and supporting the business. Sure, you have people on call, but the ones that are not on call, they're not like continuously being like in touch with what's happening. While in the US, we are, and I'm making a caricature here, of course, but like, people are always on the lookout, working like sometimes late at night, but like they're always there.
Mm-hmm.
So like perception that some level of laziness, and if you add on top like all the legacy or baggage that comes with like a specific country, like French, always on strike, hard to work with, and everything. It's really easy to have like a bias, and then confirmation bias. And when you see this, you're like, no, I mean, what did we acquire? Like, was it like the right place to acquire? And on the opposite side, like the French people are like, those guys, they fake. I'm working like all day, all night. Like I went to the office, and like people like in the middle of the day, they can go to the gym, and then they come back, they work a bit, and then they do like some, I would say, whatever stuff outside, and then they come back. So yes, they have like pretty long hours, but like the reality is like they're not intense. So like we had this very, very different way to work and achieve things. And that was like starting to create like a weird dynamic. And what we've done, and in every acquisition it's the case, especially when people are far away, you need to build trust. And building trust comes with time, but you also like having people being exchanged. Like we sent one person to the US, one person that was trusted in the US sent to France, and you have those people now. They start to understand how people are working. They understand it's different, but the outcome is on par.
Yeah.
We achieve in a different way. And having this being translated through someone that has the trust of the other team, and basically, hey guys, I'm with them. And okay, they're different, but they do achieve a lot in their own way. And I think this is important to understand, that when you have I would say those strong differences in ways to work, like building that trust and having like when you have the opportunity, but like doing those exchange of people totally change the way I would say it is perceived. And I'm really exactly repeating the same pattern here, like at Productboard. We are building a team in San Francisco, but we have like the core team or like most of the team being in Czech Republic and the rest of Europe. We are sending someone for 3 months in San Francisco, and every people that is hired in San Francisco will spend some time in Prague so that people can start and see like the different way of working, the different way of communicating, then be more used to it and building that trust and that empathy. So I think it's key. I think it's key. So that's another example.
So I think it also bridges the gaps and makes the other side more human. Yeah. So it's not only an avatar online, which could as well be nowadays generated by AI. Okay, so we've also covered like this mitigation. If I can add something, I remember one of the solutions for such like, different approaches to ways of working was like agreeing on a social contract before, a project, for instance, starts, right? So that everyone is on the same page, like working hours and like availability beside them. Okay, are there like is there anything else that comes to your mind that
I mean, I would say another example that comes to mind, and it's like the way we interact, like you're talking about this social contract, but the way we interact during meetings and the way we can be perceived as harsh or not. Like I have like a vivid memory of so we've been acquired by DocuSign 2015. At the same time, DocuSign, US-based company, with like American DNA, Silicon Valley, Seattle, I would say type of, engineering practices. And they acquired a team in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. They acquired a team in Tel Aviv, in Israel, and our team in France, roughly at the same time. And we had this workshop where I would say we had like the tech leads of each teams and the leaders of each teams come into like a big room and start to define how we should make that work. Because it's great to make those acquisitions. We were connects, there's like same technologies, like variation of that, how to make that work, like how to make that a success. And it was like really interesting to see that during the meeting with the people from Tel Aviv, people from France and people from Brazil, we have decided to be like pretty heated. Like we talk with our hands. We are like really engaged in the conversation. If we disagree with someone, we'll be like really, really like tough on them to get to the root of the issue and all of that. While the American, and I'm making a caricature here, but like Americans were a bit more on the like, what the hell, what's happening here? Like, and trying to not sugarcoat, but trying to be like much more like, no, let's work say more gently together. And at the end of the meeting, I remember like, at the end of the meeting, we, one of the American persons asked me like, what just happened here? That was crazy. And I was like, no, that was the most efficient meeting ever. Like, yeah, but like you were yelling at each other. Yeah, but we'll get a beer like right after it because that's the way to work. That's the way to solve issues and disagreements and all of that. And this is during the meeting. And then outside you can take a beer. But they were not used to this model. And for them, it was like a bad meeting, almost toxic. And so it's important, like to come back to your question, as a leader, when you detect that some people are like not comfortable with like the way things are happening, it's really important to give them like the context and why it's okay in that context with those people with that culture. Totally okay. So that's another example, and I would say probably at a more pragmatic or like individual level, it's also interesting to understand where people are coming from, which culture they are from. I remember like early in my career, I was working with someone from Asia with the culture of like tremendous respect for the hierarchy.
Yeah.
Where if you start saying to your boss that you might be wrong or I don't understand what you're asking me, it's perceived as an insult. So tendency to always say yes, even if you're not really exactly sure of the request. And that bite me, I was in my back. Like I say I learned the lesson the hard way. Like you need to understand where people are coming from and how they react to like hierarchy in this model, because I was like, no, that's not what I asked. Like, why did you do this? Why didn't you tell me that I was not clear in my explanation? And I can't, you're the boss. And again, I mean, with the being a more and more like a global system, I mean, I think that those differences tends to disappear a bit, but we still have this culture, DNA, whatever you want to call it, that differs from, I would say, one country to the other. And I think it's really important to at least to care about it.
Yes. So we're slowly moving towards it, but I mean, how do you deal with those differences? Yes, how to avoid any kind of, so instead of firefighting and damage control, how would you prepare yourself to avoid any kind of issues that could arise out of it?
I mean, I wish I have like the perfect magic wand or like the perfect solution. I have my way. I tend to read a lot, and when I know that I have like a new group or like a new acquisition, like coming from a different place, I tend to read. So I read about the country, I read about like their culture, and for example, at Productboard, the first thing that I asked my team was, "Hey guys, better understand what Czech Republic is about. What are the 2-3 books that you suggest me to read?" And they gave me some examples that were like honestly great, talking about like the history of the country, and then it gives you some hints about like potentially the reason people behave in one way or the other. At least you have a better view of what they are. And at least just be conscious. Be conscious that people might be different, and don't assume the best. Maybe the reaction you receive feels weird compared to your principles or your ways coming from with your background. Just assume the best. And if you don't understand, ask questions. And I mean, this is a pretty common thing. Like, just be curious, opportunity to learn. But I think that it goes a long way.
Yeah. And if I can add something from myself, I remember my first days at Samsung, which is like global corporation, but with headquarters in South Korea. But one day was dedicated fully to cultural training. So we were learning about Korean culture. And it was an eye-opening experience. I must say that it really helped a lot work afterwards and avoid some issues. Yeah, and what you mentioned, I think like this Asian cultures, which are very hierarchical, and to understand this beforehand or how to even behave. Yeah, there are things like your approach to sneezing in public places. Yeah. Even small things like that really matter, because other cultures can consider it disgusting, while you wouldn't, yeah, in Europe. So it's really interesting. And assuming that you are in a place that you have a team working from various locations distributed globally, or you need to build a new one. What should be the role of the leader in managing those risks?
I think that's a good question, and I think it's not an easy one, and it depends on the size of the organization you live in. Because as you said, you join Samsung, they know there's cultural differences. They have like HR really thinking about it, getting training to people. So, I mean, you're supported. So you have like a lot of support coming from the organization to help you navigate those differences. I think the difficulty comes when you're like in smaller organization, like not a public company, from seed company to Series D, like pre-IPO company. And this is definitely something that is harder because you do not have the support. And as a leader, I think that and this is where when the founders like start to build their team, they need to bring people that have this understanding already, because you're taking a risk if you're taking someone that has no experience with distributed different cultures. I would stay with a different culture. Distributed brings like another set of problems on top of the culture. But if you bring a leader that has like no clue or was used to only one setup, one type of people, you're taking some risk. So the role of the leader in that case is like to hopefully have built some experience already in a context where if you have those different culture, and be on the lookout, like always in meetings, trying to detect like body language, like when you see people starting to like just jump in, trying to understand why what's happening, what was wrong with this meeting. Oh, that person was really challenging. Wait, that person is coming from, I don't know, Israel, Central Europe, and they are like pretty grumpy, but it's for the better of the company because they want things to improve. I say, oh, okay, but it was a bit harsh. That's their way. Just know that good intent wrapped in a model that you're not familiar with, but like the intent is good there. And with the person, like just saying that, hey, you know that your ways might be perceived pretty harsh. Yeah, but like I don't want to sugarcoat things. That's the typical feedback that you get. It's not about sugarcoating. It's understanding how people will perceive your message. And if you want your message to be received properly, you need to understand how they will process your words, but also like your body language and all of that. So if you want to be more impactful in your communication, then so it's basically coaching. And awareness, bringing awareness to people that one, they need to assume good intent. And as a leader, you need to make like the difference between, because I'm talking about like harsh people and pretty vocal people, you need to be like really strict, whether it is like good intent and just like your cultural ways to express yourself versus like someone that is just a jerk and have strong rule about this. So I make a very solid difference between the two.
Yeah. So I was wondering whether, assuming that you as a leader are aware of the potential issues, and apart from coaching the teams, do you think that it could impact how you structure the teams or how you make the software development processes? And what would be your advice to structure this? Should you mix the teams up or make them collocated?
I think it's not related to the difference of culture, but I have strong opinions on how to structure the team when it's distributed, and but not really for the culture aspect. I don't take it as a input, I would say, to structure or think about like the structure of the team. Co-location, I've been in fully remote and fully distributed team. I've been in, I would say, back in the days, like fully in the office, like every day, and I've been in a hybrid model today. Like at Productboard, we have folks that are in office like 3 days a week. Some people that are like just remote, and I do believe that for a team to be efficient, I mean, I've experienced two models, and the first one was so at First Base, we try to mix people, so like have teams with one person in the US, one or two person in Europe, and be fully async, like trying to work completely asynchronously. I think that it is good to bring the awareness that the company is distributed, that your communication needs to be slightly different. But at the same time, it's evident to me now that being time zone is more important, way more important than just bringing the awareness that the team is fully distributed across the different time zones. Just in terms of like pure efficiency, you don't want to wait like for like 4 hours, like the person to be up and everything to get your to answer. So in terms of like structuring and organizing the team, and that's like the good example is the team in the US that we are building for Productboard. We try to identify one, like a mission that is meaningful for the company, because you don't want to have like a team that is just like a satellite. You want this to be core to the story so that people need the other ones to be successful and not consider that as that's probably like a priority number 2 or 3 or 4. You want, I would say, all hubs to feel important and critical for the global mission. That's, I would say, one key aspect. And the second part is trying to find something with as little dependencies as you can. So if you have too much interdependencies, that will lead to some friction, because naturally, because of the time zone, as much, I would say, as good as you are in implementing like the GitLab model, being fully async and writing everything, you will have friction because no one is perfect. We try to optimize when we hire for people that have like clarity in their communication to make sure that I would say they communicate well. But if you can limit the number of interdependencies between the teams, I would say that's better for the success of these. So those different hubs. So, but as long as the people are the same time zone, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't care where they are, because you can replicate, I would say that a good communication is the time zone is here. And if you can also have people co-located in the same place, it's even better. It's even better. You can make it work if it's not co-located, but being co-located, whether it is like for the sharing of information, whether it is like just for the mood, because sometimes you might feel a bit down for whatever reason, and then you're surrounded by people that are like pretty energized and everything, boom, that brings you up. So there's also some advantages, but so I sort of like now my hybrid model, because you can have your focus time at home and organize your day the way you want, and then come to the office mostly to make sure the interaction, like the meetings and all, are like lively and live. And, so that's pretty cool for now.
So how to make the teams fully autonomous so they can have as few interdependencies as possible?
So
even possible to do this.
I mean, that's directional. The intent should be directional and try to optimize for like I would say the dependencies. Especially, we all know that the way you structure your organization will have an impact on the way your architecture of the product will be done. So I don't think there's so we had we had to make a decision on our side, like what this team will be in charge of and all of that. It was a tricky discussion because all the pieces are somehow interconnected, somehow. So you need to find something that is the less interconnected, so that you can really understand the type of interconnection and dependencies, so that you can control them and make sure that you optimize for them. I mean, really no interaction. Maybe if you build a globally new product and I would say different stacks and all, but you will have always something like with a lot of interaction. And again, one thing like for Productboard, it's like 85% or like 90% in Europe, 10% in the US. So you cannot have the Europe, I would say the big chunk, depend too much on that small team, because there's too many dependencies on this team there. So you want that team to have some dependencies on the central hub to make it more efficient. And again, it's the beginning. So like, are we right? Are we doing it the right way? I don't know, but I do believe that directionally we're right. And the team is fully aligned on the way to do it.
Is it? Okay, and so maybe slowly wrapping up at this topic, we can move to the other one. Any one advice you would give to a person in a similar position to yours? So any kind of IT leader having to manage distributed teams on how to avoid big pitfalls?
I think it's related to how people feel they contribute to the overall, I would say, business goals. You want people to feel that they contribute equally to the success of the company, regardless of where they are. I think this is probably like the number one thing to think about, even like on top of the culture and all of that, where people feel that they work on something that is core and directly aligned to the objectives of the company, they feel good. Even if you're a remote team, because of some acquisition or because of like whatever the history is, like you're a small team out of wherever, as long as it's known by everyone that what you do is core to the I would say the company, you will have the support, you will have the respect if you deliver, but you will have the respect and the recognition also. And I think this is something that is really important. It's when you have like different teams, different hubs, you need to make sure that every single hub has a core mission. Because as soon as it's becoming like just a satellite, you will the interaction will probably loosen. There will be less and less project given to that team, and slowly it will sunset by itself. And basically, your people will leave because they don't feel like I would say in charge of anything that is really meaty and impactful for the company.
Can I ask how big Productboard is?
Productboard is Productboard. So we are a Series D company, definitely international. We have customers in Europe, in the US, a bit everywhere. We touch SMB market to enterprise market. We have like a strong pull from the enterprise market right now.
Number of employees, yeah. And
in terms of employee, it's roughly like, I think we have 250 employee right now. And the overall engineering product design, so what we call EPD, we have a bit more than 100 people.
So you're making a product, yeah, which is like a one product.
It's yes, totally.
Yeah, because having worked for companies like Samsung, that does everything from fridges down to the phones and everything, software. Yeah, so there's no one simple mission, and I assume that leaders in those companies are struggling with bigger challenges on how to define.
Completely. I mean, it's relatively easy for a company our size because the mission is clear. I mean, we are solving we're building the system of work for product managers. I mean, it's as simple as this, and it's sort of like a new category to work on. So it's fairly easy for people to understand how they contribute to the business right now. But as we grow, the Productboard will grow, will become a platform more and more, and people will build on top of it. And I mean, it's kind of like the typical route where you start with one product, and then you start to work on everything that is connects to the product. You start to have a portfolio of products, still contributing to the main mission. I don't think we will become anyway like Samsung and building fridges and phones and stuff like this. But we will probably have eventually a portfolio of products supporting product management and the product, I would say the work life cycle globally. And you need something that for just product management, you probably eventually need something for release management, probably something associated with product marketing, which is close to product management. So there's a lot of stuff that are connected that you can expect have on top of the platform. The same way Salesforce starting with just like a CRM platform, and now on top of Salesforce, mainly they almost do anything. We still want to focus on product management. Like we are strongly opinionated, and we have like a clear mission. So the persona we want to serve is really clear, and we don't want to move too far away from that. But yeah, that's the natural evolution of your product eventually.
All right, so I think we can quickly move on to the other topic we discussed during our initial conversation. So last year the media was full of information about layoffs in big tech, yeah, mostly in the US. And I'm just wondering, and the numbers were like staggering. Yeah, it was like even thousand or even hundreds of thousands of people being laid off globally. And I was wondering, how does the situation look now? Has it stabilized, in the Bay Area, or basically in the US, or and basically where we are now?
I mean, I would love to, I would say, to have like a wise answer to this. What I can see is, yeah, I do think it's trending better. I do think that now, for mostly like, and I will talk about like the B2B market, like everyone that is working for the B2B market. Last year was crazy because everyone was basically cutting budget. They didn't know where the market would go. So like they cut budget, they tried to reduce the cost everywhere. Everything that was not critical, the business critical, was basically just stopped. And like all the, the B2B SaaS companies saw like a bunch of churn associated with that. And so that was last year. That said, now CFOs and like finance organization in those companies, they build 2024 budget in a much more, I would say, conservative way, but they still build a budget. So now people that want to buy their software, work with their partners and everything, they know what is allowed, and this budget is now available. Might tiny, but it's there. So we are not in a situation that's like we were last year where people didn't have the budget and it just disappeared. Now we are working with people that have some level of budget, and you need to work and convince that this is the budget they need to spend on you. So I think globally 2024 is better from that angle. The other angle is like looking at the layoffs. Like Tesla just announced, like I think it was like yesterday. Well, I don't know when this podcast will be published, but definitely it was. So end of April, like still Tesla getting rid of like 10% of people. If not on a daily basis, at least on a weekly basis, you have another company doing another round. I think we are not just done yet with the very small company, like the one that are kind of like under the radar, basically just disappearing. So it's not over just yet. But on the other side, between like those budgets that are not secure for 2024, and on top like the bump of AI and the money from the VC coming back, not in the same way, but like coming back again, you have some actors that are kind of like losing, but some new that are raising. And so globally, I think it's way better than 2023. I think we're still in a recovery phase. And we can also see it like in the type of leaders that people are looking for now. Definitely not the same as the one, I would say, before the downturn.
Yeah. And, I've had a number of conversations like in the last year with CTOs and, IT leaders basically. And so I can't count the number of conversations we had about them needing to go through the process of conducting the layoffs, yeah, and how difficult it is personally. But and we also discussed this previously. But how to do this in the least I don't know, destructive, negative way. It's a difficult situation for everyone, but how to go through it, with as few bumps as possible.
I don't know if anyone has a good recipe.
But yeah, what would be your recipe?
Also, for one, I mean, yes, it's hard. Yes, it's hard. It's part of the hard things that we have to do in our jobs. That's a big disclaimer. It's way harder for the people that are let go than for the people that are conducting a layoff, clearly. So I don't want to even starting to compare, I would say, the situation. But as part of the job, and what I would say our job, it's the hardest part of the job. It's hardest part because there's your right brain that is working on it, which is kind of like working on the Google Sheet, trying to understand what will be the less impactful for the business. So that's the easy part. It's very analytical. And then you have your left, I would say, brain and that is like the empathetic, say, brain, and especially in smaller company, because, and that's why say I prefer working for smaller company. I know people by their name, I know the people, I know their story and all of that. And when you have to make a call, make a decision, even if your right brain is very confident that this is the way to go based on a constraint, I would say, dictated by the business, making it, I would say, a reality for your left brain is draining. It's draining. And I hope it will be draining until I would say my last day on the job, because I don't want to be used to it. But yeah, that's the hard part, and it's interesting as I reflect. My first layoff was one person, and it was relatively easy underperformance, but it was a nice person. So the person was liked on the floor, but clearly not performing, and no one wanting that person in their team, and you still have to do it. And you have your brain, part of your brain is like, yeah, can we afford it? The reality is like, no, you can't. It's not wise from a business standpoint. So you need to pull the trigger. And as a first experience as a manager of a small team, you're always conflicting about like what people will think about me. Like, you try to thrive for the people to love you as a leader, and then you need to make a decision that will hit that life. And moving, I would say, back, I would say, moving forward like a couple of years, a bit more, I had to kill an office completely. When I said to kill, like to sunset an office following an acquisition that was good for the business. Technically, it doesn't make sense anymore, I would say, that much. The people skill set was not like aligned with what the company was able to do. So business-wise, my right brain and my analytical brain was, oh, it's easy. You need to get rid of that. It's easy on paper. And then you have to go to, I would say, discuss with the team, understand how to make it happen, explain them that's the reality. And that was relatively easy because it was at a time where the market was at relatively high and people will find a job the next day. And then we have this last year, and in my, I would say, past experience and previous experience, you start to do layoffs at scale. And so it's not like a business decision, a small team because whatever, like acquisition. No. It's like, wow, we need to basically get rid of a lot of people. And I find the hardest part as a leader to let go of people that I hire for my network. Because you build your team, you build with your network, people who you trust you try to make that team successful, and all of a sudden, boom, you have this decision that you're part of. So I don't want to shy away from the decision making, but you're part of the decision. And yes, given the constraint, given the market environment, we need to trim down. We need to be more lean, and you need to make decisions. And then you need to make decisions sometimes to get rid of people that came for you with the trust. And all of a sudden, you have to make those. That's the hardest. And then you need to live with that. You're staying. You're sad for the other people, but you need to be loyal to the rest of the people. And one thing that was really, really important in my personal growth, I discussed with a mentor, but we had like a pretty significant discussion, slightly on another topic. But the outcome was, as a leader, you need to be ready to lose the love, but you need to strive to gain the respect. And now it's kind of like became my way to remind me that I will have to make some decisions that make people unhappy, but at least they need to understand that I do it, I would say, the right way or for the right reason. I might make some mistakes during the process, but as long as they understand that, given the context, that was the right thing to do, I might lose the love. But as long as they understand that it was the right thing to do, I did my job right. And it's not easy. So coming back to your first question and initial question, like what would be my suggestion to do it right? I don't know if there's one way to do it right, but at least we need to thrive to make it as human as possible. But you're still letting go people. As you're letting go people, you're letting go skills, you're letting go like people that were actively contributing, which means that your team will all of a sudden see some helpers disappear, maybe like some teams that were helping them on some topics and everything. But they need to understand, they need to thrive for them to understand that, given the constraint, that was the right way. Or at least I understand, and they need to understand my reasoning. They might disagree with it, but at least you owe the clarity on why you're making such or such decision. And it's not easy. It's not easy. And I'm not sure that I'm doing that right.
Not easy. But, okay, so I would like to avoid finishing with a negative note. So maybe, would you give some your outlooks on the future of the industry? I hope you would say something more positive than this, but
I think that we are living. I mean, everything is cyclic. So there's some highs, some lows, some highs, some lows, and we are at I would say during a low. I would argue that on top of it, we had this AI hype and AI fear that it will replace so many jobs. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. I'm pretty sure that if there will be an impact with AI, it's even more work. I don't believe that it will, I would say, net negative. It will have an impact on the way we work. It will have an impact on, I would say, like maybe the change of some jobs to other jobs, like the same way when we start to have like agriculture, like seeing tractors coming, like all the peasants, all of a sudden, like they disappear as a profession or like becoming like less number of people, but they move to something different because now all of a sudden there's an industry, a new industry that you need to support and everything. So net new, I'm not that afraid. In terms of like being more specific for engineers, I'm not afraid either. I'm maybe more afraid for managers. And I think this is something we are seeing right now. Like and I've done it also at Productboard. We used to have ratios that are changing right now. A manager was used to manage 5, 7, maybe 8 people at all levels. Right now, we're seeing definitely like a flattening of organizations, a bit like I would say, and I will talk for the old one of your audience, but like when Valve, I would say, started the company, like behind Steam, they had this very flat organization, and they were like one of a kind. And people were looking at it, it was like, wow, that's a sort of a happiness. I would say strong people, they know what to do, no need to, I would say structured management that much and everything. They came back from it. But I think we are coming probably more toward a world where one manager will manage like a bigger number of teams, and probably emphasizing on seniority. That's also something that with the current market, most startups, they emphasize on senior engineers. So probably like right now it's tough as a CS grad getting out of university, entering the market is probably trickier than like 3 years ago. Yeah.
So I have a similar observation. All right, I think this is a great topic, the one you briefly mentioned about managers, for the next episode. So I hope we get a chance to talk again and record another one. Loïc, many thanks for dedicating your time and sharing great chunk of wisdom and knowledge. I hope it's gonna be equally beneficial to the viewers as it was for me. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Marcin. Thanks for having me. Enjoy chatting with you as always. So thanks a lot.